Happy Mother's Day to everybody. Good morning, Caroline B says. What happens if you breed a visual fluffy with a non-visual? So let's talk about fluffies in general, and we'll do a Punnett square to kind of go over this. So the first thing is, like the majority of genes that we're talking about for color, they are recessive genes. It takes two copies for it to physically show up. The only two genes that don't require that are the brindle gene, a single copy will show up, or the moral gene. But all the other genes, creams, blues, chocolates, fluffies, take a copy from each parent for it to show up. All right, so let's just look at the various possibilities of what we could have. Here's our Punnett square. And what we're going to look at first is we're going to look at a dog that is, and normally the terminology for this would be L is not fluffy, not, and little l is yes, is fluffy. All right, so we've got a dog that's little l to a little l, and of course all the dogs are little L's, and we end up with a whole litter of all fluffy dogs, 100%. Okay, so now we're going to put this with a dog that has only one copy of fluffy. What would we get? Well, that turns into a big L. That turns into a big L. And these are, so what you get is you get a half of them are fluffy carriers and a half of them are full fluffies. All right, so now we're going to go make this a fluffy carrier. There's another possibility. Make that a fluffy carrier. Now what happens? This one here gets a big L. You only get 1 out of 4, 25%, that are full fluffies. And you get, and I better get this right here. Sorry, that's got to change there. There we go. You get 25% full fluffies. You get 25% nothing to do with fluffy at all, and half, or 50%, this line through here, that are fluffy carriers. And of course, the last thing, let's just look at the last thing that could happen, is that you breed a full fluffy with a non-fluffy. What would you get? Let's say you can read it. L. Drop my pen. Oops, daisy. And there we go. Everybody is a fluffy carrier. They're all fluffy carriers. Nobody's fluffy. And it's interesting on the fluffies because if you get a fluffy carrier, they do appear to have a thicker, coarser coat. It's not like a full fluffy, but you do see a difference in that most of the time. And of course, there's also a difference in fluffy coats anyway. You know, you'll get some dogs that are full fluffies that have got just an amazing shaggy coat, and other dogs where it's not quite so impressive. So it is a bit variable. Presumably there's other genes that are going on there. And while we talk about that, let's just briefly talk about in Frenchies, there are two versions of the long-haired gene. There's L1 and L4. So the question is, if you produce a puppy that's L1, L4 versus a puppy that's L1, L1, or versus a puppy that's L4, L4, is there any difference in the coat length, coarseness, or anything else? No, not that I've seen, no. There are variations in coat lengths and coarsenesses and those kind of things, but it's not because of that. There's some other gene that's affecting that we can't test for, so we don't know if it's present or not. All right, there's a long dissertation on that part. Let's see how we're going now. IDEX machine question. Read my glasses so I can read it. We use the IDEX machine. Oh, you already asked that question before. Just to add only one. Oh, then that's where we'll give. What can we use to heal? Okay, what can we use to heal hot spots on our dog once he gets them? Is Neosporin any good? Do we need to take the dog to the vet? Well, I mean, the first thing is you've got to find out, you know, why. The real question here is why are they getting hot spots? So there are topical treatments you can use. Sprays, medicated shampoos, topical things like, you know, somebody mentioned coconut oil. You know, all of those things fine, they're completely safe, no danger at all. But really the question is, you know, why are you getting these spots? I mean, there could be some things that are more serious, like scabies or red mange. You want to make sure those things aren't what's going on here, because you can treat for those specifically, and you should. And to find out what's going on, typically you do a skin scraping. So what you do is you take the area that's affected, you put some mineral oil on it, they get a scalpel, and they start rubbing vigorously to the point where they start to kind of get little blood spots coming up on that piece of skin. Scrape that off, put it on a slide, look under a microscope, and look for various different kinds of mites. So that would be the first thing, is to make sure that there's something more serious going on. But if you've just got a hot spot in one place, and a place where it's lost so I would start with probably medicated shampoo, because you can't hurt doing that anyway. And then try put some ointment on it, aloe vera oil, coconut oil, Neosporin, any of those things, see if that helps the situation. Dayton Tomisato. Just had a litter and mum is not cleaning them. I don't mind cleaning them, but the problem is the mess is getting stuck in their behinds. Bottom's starting to get raw. What process do you use to clean them? And what can I put on them once the bottoms are raw? Well, the first thing is, let's try to get mum to clean the puppies, so you don't have to do this, because otherwise it's, you know, you just can't do this, or you can, but it's to go clean puppies every hour, you know, it's difficult to do, especially at nighttime. So start by putting some peanut butter on their bums and have mum lick that off. She will lick that off, and she'll get a bit of a taste of the poop that comes in with the peanut butter. It sounds awful, but anyway, you'd be surprised how well this works. It really works for new mums who just come home from a C-section or delivered puppies and they don't know what's going on. Put some peanut butter on their bums, just rub a little bit on there and let her lick that off. You'll be surprised how well that works. And maybe that will get her to the point where she will then continue to look after the puppies properly. If not, a wet, moist paper towel, rub the bottoms to get them going, wipe it off, and then if it's sore, Neosporin on there afterwards. And those are the things to do. Does KN mean brindle? Yes, it does. KN. It could be KBN. Could be KBRN. The N means it doesn't have two copies. The K means it has one copy. Those are brindle dogs. Why does it matter? Because the brindle gene is a dominant gene and a single copy will express itself. So then if you're trying to do things like tan points, they will not show up. So you hear me talk about this a lot, and I say that I don't have any brindle dogs. It's because I want to produce dogs with tan points, and I can't do the brindles present. So if you had a dog, Punnett square time, if you bred a dog, one that did not have brindle, and one that had a copy of brindle, what would you get? Half of them, 50%, would have a copy of brindle, would show it. 50% wouldn't. So you can escape it on average on half the litter by breeding to a non-brindle dog if you've got a brindle dog, if you care about it. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.